Welcome to another progress report for the Foundation. Got a couple of things to show you this week. First of all, if you look at the globe, I was experimenting with some anti-aliasing. So you might see that there's no jaggies around the edges, very smooth. Also, I did a lot of tweaks to the camera controls this week. So for one thing, I don't know how well this shows up on YouTube, but at least on my view, you can see that the zoom, much more smooth, flowing, not abrupt. And it should be a lot nicer to control the camera that way now. And the same thing goes with dragging the mouse around, much smoother movements. Also, I added in a couple other movement controls. You can middle mouse click to just lock in the dragging control. Also, you can hold down left click and scroll to rotate left to right, and right click and scroll to rotate up and down. Second of all, as I was going into the interceptor logic to make the interceptions better to work on the tailing mode and the threatening mode, a problem came up where it was really difficult to, well, even just with shooting down the plane, it was really difficult to tell the owner of the plane that their plane got shot down when I really didn't have any mapping of IDs to the actual groups of interest that owned the plane. So I made some tweaks to the back end so that now it runs using the name of the group of interest instead of just randomized numbers that were really hard to keep track of. This way it's really clear and it's really easy to pass around the IDs of who owns it because it's just their name and the name's pretty readily available. As part of that though, it also made it so that if we look at relationships now, I can set starting relationships between any two groups of interest now. So for example, Are We Cool Yet is selected. They start out as enemies to the Foundation and Global Occult Coalition, and fairly friendly with Marshall, Carter, and Dark. As we go around here, we can see that I've put a variety of different starting relationships, basically just for testing, but some of them might end up being the way it is eventually. But yeah, so that was a good side effect of that. Also, the tailing activity is done, but there's not really any point in showing it because it doesn't have much of a gameplay effect yet. The threaten option is partially completed, but it was waiting on that back-end work with the string IDs, and now I can move forward with that as well. Another thing that got worked on is I have implemented some graphical options for the game for tweaking it, configuring it. And this is hard to demonstrate on this video because my recording software is going to end up splicing and adjusting whatever resolution I set it to. But I fixed a couple of aspect ratio problems that my UI was having. And so now here, this code right here will detect the various resolutions that you have available, pretty standard stuff, and allow you to select different resolutions. The nice thing though is that it's very responsive. Basically you click and it's done. And you can see there's three different modes: full screen, borderless window, and windowed mode. You can also use the position override there to move it onto other monitors or to different positions on your monitor that it's running in. Unfortunately, this code really only works for Windows right now. I'm still doing some digging and figuring out how to make it work for Linux and Mac. I believe that the full screen and windowed might work in Linux and Mac, but the borderless definitely only works on Windows right now. So those are the main things that I got done this week. There were two things that kind of hindered me and slowed me down a little bit. One, I thought I had all the Unity 5 bugs gone, but when I went in to do interception work this week, it turned out that there were tons of hidden bugs in the interception code and UI that hadn't surfaced during my initial tests last week. The other thing that got in my way is that at the beginning of the day on Friday, I made some misclicks in Unity when it was hanging crazy combination of circumstances, but it ended up utterly corrupting and ruining a folder full of all the data and stuff I'd worked on this week. I had to revert back to my source control, but I had forgotten to commit over the last few days, and so set me back quite a bit, and I had to redo all my work, and there were some other problems that came from that, and it set me back a ways. It was a real learning experience on being sure to commit all the time, every day. So hopefully that won't happen again, because hopefully I've learned my lesson this time. But yeah, a bit of a setback that way. Next week, definitely digging into the interception code some more, working on getting that finished up. And with that, I hope to be able to get into the base code so that we'll be able to place additional bases, radar facilities, areas, things like that in order to expand your sight range around the world and your interceptor range. For one thing, it's getting hard to intercept things now that I have a fuel range in my aircraft. I have to kind of get lucky with only one base. So with multiple bases, I'll be able to make the logic a little bit better and be able to actually intercept just about everything. So that was the progress for this week. Thank you for watching. Be sure to share with anyone who's interested, and I'll catch you next week.